And the reason, and this is the key discovery that I've made, the most important discovery of it all, is about inflammation. And that is, contrary to popular belief among lay people and professionals as well, inflammation is not a natural response to injury. Wait a minute. It always happens, doesn't it? Well, yeah, I thought it always happened too. It always used to happen to me till I embarked on my self-experimentation with glycine supplementation. And for a couple of years, I was taking 10 grams of extra glycine a day. I knew it would be harmless. It would probably help me, but I didn't know exactly what to expect. And what happened was I had a fall 4 feet onto a concrete floor directly onto my tailbone. And that hurt a lot. But I got up and managed to finish what I was doing. And that evening I went dancing and it was fine. The next day I had absolutely no aches and pains or anything. I had this massive bruise on my lower back to prove that I had had this fall, but that was it. And then some weeks after that, I actually got a horrible sunburn. I was attending a baseball game without a hat, short sleeve shirt, shorts, in the sun. It was June, right around this time of year. So we're talking about, 16 years ago. And, so I was sitting there watching the game. Of course, I didn't bring any sunscreen. Why? Because I wasn't going to the beach, so I didn't give it any thought. But then about the fifth inning, about 2/3 of the way through the game, I was, all of a sudden I felt warmth on my thighs, and I looked down and I saw that right at the hem of my shorts and my sleeves and my neck and everything, it was really beet red. And I'm very fair skinned and I knew my body pretty well, I thought. And so I knew that with this level of sunburn for a couple of hours in the sun, I was going to be in excruciating pain for the next 2 or 3 days, doing simple things like getting dressed, undressed, and bathing. So the first thing I did was I went into the shade, and guess what? It just started to fade. And it never did what I was absolutely certain it would do. So certain that I would be in tremendous pain for quite a while and maybe debilitated from that fall on my tailbone, and certainly in excruciating pain for a period of days after that sunburn. Those things didn't happen. So these were the aha moments. These were the results manifesting from that self-experiment. Aha, inflammation is supposed to happen now, but it's not happening.
Now, as we have discussed, what we eat and our insulin levels are crucial for fixing any health issue. But through my experience, it
can be any source you like. They will all define inflammation. They do define inflammation as the immune system's first response to infection or injury. That is a half-truth. It is a first response to infection. It does no good at all in injury except cause more injury. And now you can see it was very easy to connect the dots at that point and see why all these diseases, from heart disease to cancer to arthritis to, all manner of inflammatory chronic disease, produce that disease because of inflammation. And why? So the question they usually ask is, they say, well, inflammation is a normal response to the immune system to injury, and usually it's self-limiting, but for some reason, especially as we get older, it seems not to be self-limiting, and we don't understand why it becomes chronic. Wrong question. And I found out, I mean, it took a couple of otherwise serious, injuries, serious incidents in my own life to knock me over the head in a way and get rid of that notion that I very deeply held that inflammation is a natural response to injury, because it always happens to us. Well, when I had enough glycine in my system, it didn't happen to me. And of course it doesn't anymore. I actually did get a serious head injury about 8 years ago. And, took to the ER. I was knocked out. I was unconscious for, some manner of seconds and, confused for a minute or two and so forth. And then they discharged me from the hospital. They recommended that I follow it up. But I knew by then, because now we're talking about, 2018 already. I knew by then that there would be no difficulty. There was going to be no long-term problems due to my concussion or anything like that it would just heal. That happens in the brain too. And it did. It just healed. And so it even explains glycine deficiency even explains the difficulties that we have now with sports injuries. There were always used to be sports injuries and so on, but it was never this bad, where football players, boxers, we knew that would, likely happen, but where you get this chronic encephalopathy due to chronic inflammation in the brain, because the macrophages of the brain, they're called microglia. Same story. It's the glycine. When you have enough glycine, the injury just heals. There's another myth that's, sort of a corollary of the myth that glycine is a natural response to, that inflammation is a natural response to injury. One of the corollaries of that is that, that inflammation does some good in terms of initiating the healing response in injury. Baloney. None of that's true. Found out by simple self-experimentation. And, when things are that clear, and when it's such a fundamental fact that is discovered or rediscovered or uncovered, that finally you have that piece of the jigsaw puzzle, that central piece, and all of a sudden, all the research in disparate areas, all the pieces start fitting together and you really see the big picture. And now as more research gets done on different things, it's another little piece. Oh yes, that fits right here and that fits right there. Nothing that I've seen ever goes in the way of making the hypothesis somehow less robust of requiring its modification in any way. It all strengthens the case. So by now it's, even years ago, it was all very clear to me what was going on. And, and that's all I'm trying to do is share that with the world, which is not so easy.
Well, it's not so easy. That is miraculous that, if anyone has fallen on their tailbone, and I think that you said you fell off 4 feet, is that correct?
4 feet onto a concrete floor, yes.
I was just saying to my husband, like when I heard that story, because I fell on my tailbone, but I only fell from the 4th step from stairs, but it was on a concrete floor. And if anyone doesn't know where their tailbone is, it's right, on their buttocks area. And I could not lie on that area for 4 weeks. 4 weeks, I couldn't do Pilates or exercise or anything. Then when you said that happened to you and you recovered very, very quickly because of this, that's unheard of.